63% of men in the United States are single. And no, it's not because they're players, they're picky, or emotionally unavailable. It's because the dating pool isn't filled with women who are ready to build. It's filled with women chasing something else: validation, independence, status, and personal freedom, all at the cost of actual connection. Let's be honest, being a good man doesn't get you very far anymore. Not when you're up against a culture that's told women they don't need you, shouldn't trust you, and definitely shouldn't center their life around building something with you. Feminism, at least the version of it we see today, has told women that a good man is optional, but self-fulfillment, that's sacred, that his needs are secondary, and that compromise is oppression. And if you're a man that's looking for a good woman, one who still values partnership, respect, and building something real, you're not crazy. You're just living in a culture that makes you feel like you are. But here's what they don't tell you. Those women do still exist. They're just not where you're looking. They're not loud, and they're not trending. And contrary to all of those women, they're not trying to prove something to the world, but they are watching, waiting, looking for a man who leads, listens, and lives a life of purpose. And the reality is, you may not be the man that they would choose yet. And in this video, I'm going to let you in on how to avoid toxic partners and actually find women with the values that you're looking for. But first, as always, when I'm considering ideas, I get your opinion. And per request, before we get into the video, I added a segment where I ask my husband the questions that you guys wanted to hear from him. And he had no idea what the questions were to come. So this is actually interesting.
Well, I'm 0 for 3 on relationships starting from a dating app. I just think it's a real processed food way to go about finding a relationship. I don't think you'll find a man or woman of the caliber that would lead to a healthy thing on a dating app. It's very surface level, superficial, very hard to build connection that way. I'm not saying it's not a good trial by numbers approach to meeting as many people as you could and maybe people you wouldn't meet otherwise. But if you choose to go that route, you have a lot of things in mind when you finally meet these people. And the most important of which I think is, what are your values? And what values are non-negotiable for you in a relationship, and what dynamics need to be in place for you to feel free and peaceful in a relationship. And don't be afraid to stick to those. See, I'm saying that because I didn't have those throughout my dating days, and that led to a lot of dysfunctional relationships. I didn't even know really who I was and what I was all about and what my values were. I found all those things in my marriage with Kait, but I found time after time going about dating in that way, whether it was using dating apps or social media or otherwise, it just led to some very unfulfilling outcomes. And I think that's primarily because people on those apps aren't looking truly for anything long term, and a lot of people don't even know what they're looking for. And that makes it very hard to find a relationship that's going to pan out long term and be fulfilling in any way. So I think you have to know yourself, and I think the best way to meet people is in person. Now, admittedly, Kait and I did meet via the internet. My experience on those was very frustrating. Once I did kind of develop and do a lot of inner work, I had a hard time finding people who were even willing to have a conversation of any depth or substance. So I wouldn't recommend that for a man who has strong values and knows who he is and wants a very long-term committed relationship filled with respect, loyalty, intimacy, vulnerability. I don't recommend you trying to find that on a dating app. I went through several failed relationships, and it was a pretty every relationship had a different flavor, but the outcome was unfulfilling. And I think as far as bad dates go, yeah, I think we've all been on some bad dates. I'm lucky to have not been on many bad dates, but most of the time I could tell within 5 to 10 minutes if someone was going to be, if we were going to have a good conversation, or if there was anything there in terms of any depth. And I asked some pretty hard-hitting questions as well, just to kind of discern that. But yeah, I did have a couple dates that were pretty shitty, but that was just because either we were in completely different places in our lives, we had nothing in common, or where we were going in life just wasn't congruent whatsoever. So, and I found that out by asking the right questions early. The biggest lesson that I have learned, and I've learned many from undesirable outcomes in relationship, was you can't build a relationship on anything but who you are. I made the mistake of being whatever I needed to be in order to attract someone or be liked or get validation. And that's never sustainable, because inevitably the real you will come out. And my whole thing was I feared that they wouldn't love me if they really knew me. And so I would just be whatever I needed to be in order to attract. And so that involved posturing, acting like I was more than what I was, or leading with things like, finances or my looks. And at the end of the day, what it led to was you have to maintain that act in order to continue that dynamic. And it gets exhausting, and inevitably it'll come out in conflict, or you get tired of it, or you're in this internal war with yourself because you're constantly contorting who you are, collapsing boundaries to keep the other person happy or keep the facade up. And so if anything, I've just learned to be myself, and you can't lead or build a relationship from a place other than being completely who you are and being completely okay with that, which I believe is the definition of masculinity, is being completely okay with who you are. Kait and I met via some former mutual friends. We had similar career paths insofar as we were both online fitness coaches, and mutual acquaintance suggested that we have a conversation because our content was very similar. The way we spoke about things was very similar. Kait tends to be more on the behavioral side of things, which is ultimately, I think, the most important side of things. And I was more on the tactical, like, here's what you need to do to lose weight side of things. But our overall message was very similar. So Kait slid my DMs, and we found that we did have some mutual interests, one of them being hormones. And so Kait invited me on her podcast. I knew nothing about her at all. I took a surface level glance of her social media, and much to my relief, she wasn't posting her body all over social media. So that's a green flag for me right from rip. And so we got on that podcast, and I actually thought that she was married at the time because she showed zero interest whatsoever. At least that's what I picked up. I didn't think she was interested at all. In fact, I thought she might have been a lesbian. That shows you how oblivious I am. But it wasn't because she
doesn't like me, so she must be gay.
Yeah,
that's his thought process. His ego speaks.
It's 100% ego. It's like, if she doesn't think I'm attractive, clearly she must like women. No, but mostly I just thought she was married. I thought she had a partner, and so I didn't pursue it whatsoever. And I also, coincidentally at the time, had completely sworn off women. Not because I was demonizing women, because I was trying to take some time for myself to figure my shit out, because I had gotten out of a relationship pretty recently, and I was taking some time to figure out what I needed to figure out. And so I at the time had become completely okay with being single. And so I think from that place, ironically, I was able to, I don't want to say attract, but that, I don't think it could have happened any other way. But we got on that podcast, and we went really well. A few weeks rolled by, and I think Kait got an email with me as a centerpiece on that email. Another business coach was highlighting my content, and she sent it to me, and she, I guess, basically was asking to talk again about content and business and stuff. And I said, okay, that's cool, but that'll cost you a FaceTime. And still at this point thought we were just going to talk business, but we got on a FaceTime. 4 hours later, I realized she in fact was not married, and it was also such a wonderful conversation, and I just felt right. I felt safe. She felt very authentic. She felt very genuine, and she's obviously ridiculously beautiful. So I was attracted to her mostly because of how safe I felt and because of how authentic she seemed to be. And so I suggested that she come and meet me in person at a later date, and she accepted. And a few months later, we met in person, and it went wonderfully, and we've been together ever since. So here's where I give Kait a lot of credit. I was still forming my worldview at the time. I had been through and when I say several, I'd been through 3 relationships that didn't work out. And so again, I was focused on, fixing the things I was convinced I needed to fix. And I was working with a mentor at the time. And I was still forming kind of how I viewed relationship and safety. And admittedly, I was a little wounded at the time and kind of precautious around committed relationships. And I want to make sure that I did it right. And I give Kait a lot of credit because from jump, she laid out a few rules. And I think this is very important for women to have in particular. But the rules were always tell the truth, even when it's hard. Don't ever say anything that you don't mean. And don't ever ask anything of me that you wouldn't do yourself. And she laid those out very clearly. And she also gave me the freedom to accept or not accept those rules. I chose to accept those rules because coincidentally, those things helped me kind of orient myself to being the man that I wanted to be, who I've always wanted to be. I am in my heart, but didn't know the best way to go about it. And honestly didn't believe that I would find somebody who was so strong in that conviction, in what a committed relationship should look like in terms of loyalty, in terms of respect, in terms of transparency. And so I've always described this to Kait, but there was a day when Kait and I had gone through something pretty hard early on, and I made a mistake, and she forgave me. And I think that was the first time in my life that I'd actually been forgiven and given grace for something. And at that moment, everything clicked into place because she also showed me an example of what transparency looks like. She sent me a screenshot of a conversation she had with someone who inquired as to her, her relationship status. And she said, I'm committed to somebody and there's nothing for us to talk about, essentially. And so it was walking the walk. And that right there, for whatever reason, everything clicked into place for me, because in that moment, I knew this person was going to be just as loyal and transparent and truthful and committed as I was going to be. And I think it's a big question people have going into a relationship. There's always a question of like, well, all cards on the table, rubber meets road, you're hit with temptation. How are you going to respond really? And she showed me how she was going to respond in that moment. And for me, everything clicked into place because the trust that was built in that moment was solid. And it was a way for me to raise my waterline as a man and as a partner for who I needed to be for us to be successful and healthy long term. And for me to be who I really, really have always wanted to be. And so that was my North Star from jump, is those rules that she set from day one, and then the values that we mutually agreed upon together. And then from there, we did several other things as far as the vulnerability part goes and the truth aspect of relationship goes. And that just really empowered me to be everything that I know I'm capable of being, and feel good about it, and not have to hide anything, and not have to sugarcoat the truth, and not have to shy away from hard conversations, because we built our entire relationship on that. In that moment, I'll never forget when everything just kind of fell into place for me. I never looked back. There were things that I had been struggling with for years that because of that moment, I never struggled with again. And so that will always be extremely meaningful for me as somebody who's struggled with a lot of things for a long time. Having that groundwork of utmost truth from jump just really, really helped me step into the best version of myself, who I believe I am now and am continuously becoming. And I'll say this, people say that the right woman can change your life. I firmly believe that because I'm living proof of it. Well, I think trust is a leap of faith no matter what. And I think that you can never have the fruition of your decision right then and there. It's always going to be a leap of faith no matter what. But I will say what made Kait unique and special was the values that she stated from day one being embodied every single day. We had a period where we did not meet in person. I would say at least 3 months that we did not meet in person. We communicated via FaceTime. So lots of time talking, lots of time in conversations, and lots of time to see if someone was going to waver or have a desire that was incongruent with the relationship that we both wanted. And both of us, really stepped up in that regard, and we're very consistent there. What was the question again?
How did you know I was trustworthy, and at what stage did you really start to trust me?
Well, I think that people are really afraid to say what loyalty means to them for fear of losing that person. Kait didn't do that. She said, here's my values, here's what I want, here's what I think is important in a marriage and a relationship. By the way, I want marriage. By the way, I want something long-term, and I want a family. And so having that very, very clear from day one made me trust her all the more. I think when people don't have clear rules or lines, that's when things can get blurry. That's when someone can say, oh, we didn't talk about this, so I didn't know. We had every hard conversation very early on. And so that, for me, built a lot of trust, and also just the lack of judgment. We all have skeletons in our closet. We all have some kind of history, all of us. And, I was willingly vulnerable about those things early on because I wanted trust, I wanted vulnerability, I wanted connection. Sometimes we can overshare early on, but when we lack discernment. But the way that Kait in particular handled those conversations and had understanding and lack of judgment gave me a great deal of trust. And then also, again, her follow-through, her consistency with always telling the truth, even when it's hard, and embodying that every single day. Like there's never been a time where I have questioned Kait's morals, her integrity, her telling me the truth or not. And that has led to a lot of peace. And that peace becomes very attractive, because if you've lived a life where you couldn't trust your partner, or you didn't know how they were going to speak when you weren't around, or you've been that person yourself and the anxiety that can create, the lack of that is very peaceful. And that's what I found more and more over time with Kait and then that really, really built a lot of trust early on. Kait ran on the fuel of independence for a long time. That's what kept her safe, and rightly so, especially after the things she's gone through in relationship. I think there was some overcorrecting in terms of trying to protect herself, where it was like, if I'm super independent and I don't ever need anyone, I'll be safe from pain. The paradox there is that, she's had to give up some of that in terms of our committed relationship. Not so much her independence, or not so much her self-sufficiency, but more so allowing me to provide. And with that comes dependence on me. And we both believe that a man should lead a relationship and marriage. And so in order for me to do that, she has had to allow, and she's had to kind of relax some of those protectors that have been running overtime for a long time. And so there was a lot of skepticism in the beginning. There was a lot of fears that we had to work through, and everybody brings wounds into a relationship. But we've had several moments where we've had these mirror wounds. I want to be trusted so badly because in the past I wasn't so honest with people. I betrayed partners. There was infidelity involved. There was lies. There was deceit, and she experienced those things with other people. And so there was a mirror wound of I want so badly to be trusted because I've, turned my life around, and she wanted so badly to trust, but there was things standing in the way of both. And so those things have gotten a heck of a lot better over time, and those things always take time. But other traits to work on, she will deflect any compliment, especially physical, and create and make a self-deprecating comment. Like I'll say, "You're beautiful," and she'll say, "I'm okay," or "You're beautiful." I'm a solid 7. I don't like that shit. She's beautiful as fuck. And I wish she was more accepting of me authentically telling her how beautiful I think she is. And obviously she's beautiful inside out, but I think we all know how brilliant she is. And she works very, very hard to look the way that she does. And I find a lot of value in that, embodying fitness and committing and making health a value. So I praise her for it. And I mean it. I'm very attracted to Kait. Extremely attractive. And a part of her doesn't even believe that. And so I have to constantly remind her of that. I have to constantly, because that's another thing. I'll say, "Yeah, I think you're really hot." And she'll be like, "Do you really? But do you really?" And you just kind of make sure I mean it. And I'm not just saying it just to say it. So, little quirks like that obviously come from, things in history, but that's it. I got it made. I'm very, 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 very pleased, very fulfilled. And those are very small things to deal with in comparison to what I've dealt with in the past and what a lot of people deal with on a daily basis. So very small things.
And one thing I want you to address personally, do I get work done on my face? Do I have filler?
No. It's like the same people that accuse me of being on steroids. Like it's a compliment at the end of the day. But no, there is no lip filler. There is no facial work done whatsoever. She's not AI. She's just very naturally beautiful. My opinion is that she's more beautiful without makeup. That's just my opinion. She's got these beautiful freckles that the makeup covers, and I love it. I think she's beautiful the second she opens her eyes for the day. And there's not a speck of makeup that would make her more beautiful. But I also understand studio lighting can be pretty bright, and sometimes makeup can help with that, so that's okay. Support her either way. Zero work done on the face, guys. She is that beautiful.
But we've talked about getting filler before, because I thought I needed it.
Yeah, this is how fucked up social media can be. Like, she had, even as full and voluptuous and beautiful as her lips are, she still considered getting filler because it's such a common thing now. But I dissuade her every time.
Now, he didn't have to come on here and share. And no, I did not disclose what the questions would be in advance because I selfishly wanted to hear his personal perspective too. So whether you agree with his perspective or not, I will not allow anybody to stay here who's going to attack my husband. So this is your fair warning that you will not have access to my channel if you feel so compelled to come in here and just trigger jizz in the comments. Because I don't have to play that here, and I'm not going to. And now that we've gotten all of that out of the way, without further ado, let's get into the game. The first step in the game is to make sure that we define the game clearly. And who's involved? You, a man with traditional values and or preferences, seeking a woman who hasn't fully adopted feminist ideology, especially third wave postmodernist ideals. And the dating pool, which includes women who are influenced to varying degrees by feminism, social media, career first culture, hookup dynamics, etc. And lastly, we have to identify the actual opponent. And plot twist, it's not women. The real opponent is the system, a matrix of incentives, ideologies, and tech that influence behavior. So if you're actually looking for a partner, then I need you to check the lens in which you're actually viewing this through. This cannot be about beating women. It's about outsmarting the cultural framework that some of them have gotten lost in. And unfortunately, they don't see the forest through the trees. Now to step 2. Well, we have to understand the metagame. Because dating is no longer just biological attraction. It's a status game, an attention game, and often a scarcity game. So there are a few key shifts that we have to look at within the game. Number 1 being abundance of choice, aka dating apps. On these platforms, people behave like consumers, and I think we all can agree that optionality does not lead to optimality, or too many options don't lead to optimal outcomes. So we need to start to narrow the lens in which you even consider a partner through. Remember that we want depth, not reach. This isn't fucking TikTok. Number 2 being feminist ideology. This encourages independence, discourages traditional femininity, and puts out the message to prioritize yourself and your happiness even over your family and any other commitment. Number 3, we have to look at this trend of delayed marriage. This means that women enter dating with way more past experiences, higher expectations, and stronger self-protective strategies. And number 4, and this one's important, the fact that masculinity is completely demonized. And this keeps traditional men often hiding their values until trust is actually built. So they tend to posture and collapse in order to be whatever they think they need to be in order to receive attention and love. But the issue under that framework is that it positions love as being conditional. And if you're seriously looking for a long-term partner, that is not the premise we want to set in the relationship. So remember, context skews incentives. You're trying to find a long-term partner in a short-term game environment. Now for step 3, we're going to apply game theory models. And we need to be able to discern signal versus noise. Because the reality is you're dating with incomplete information. So your goal is to filter women through their values and not on surface level impressions. So when we enter this game, we have to play smart. You want to be sure that you ask value-based questions early. We're not here to waste time. Ask them their views on family, on religion, on masculinity and femininity. And if you want children, don't hesitate to bring up that subject too. A woman who's seriously looking for that is going to be open and receptive to that conversation. A woman who is not will likely get defensive because they're insecure about their own value compass, about their own value landscape. Now, we're not just asking and listening, we're watching. Pay attention to signaling that suggests warmth, modesty, accountability, and kindness over performative feminism. And lastly, outside of a wonderful evening and great conversation, we have to pay attention to consistency. What she says versus what she does, and not acutely, but chronically. And this is often not talked about, but women tend to posture just as much as men do. And this isn't genuinely who she is, it's manipulation at its finest. Now, what you need to note is that each and every interaction is going to update your perception and belief about her value system. Do not rush the investment and do not get lost in attraction and desire. Pay attention. The second layer of the game is screening games. And the most important piece is that we understand how to set the frame. Men with strong values create a frame that forces women to self-select. So instead of asking, is she not brainwashed? Create your own conditions that filter out those who are. A few examples of this might look like living your values unapologetically, because a true feminine woman will admire your strength, not resent it. Number 2, stop interacting with highly woke spaces that do not have the values that you're looking for. Dating apps, OnlyFans, social media apps, etc. are going to be way less effective than real-world experiences and communities. I cannot emphasize enough that staying in environments in which you would want your future potential partner to be in by choice is necessary if you're going to find the person that you say that you're looking for. Not clubs, bars, and social media, because where you look, you will find. And the last one, and this is so important for men, please introduce your boundaries early. Because if a woman pushes back against your standards, she's not aligned with where you're trying to go. And if you collapse every single time she pushes back, she will not respect you. And that, from my understanding, is what men want most. Now, I want to be clear that screening is not control. You don't try to change who they are in response to who you are because you see potential. You don't want to sell somebody on you. You want to attract them by standing firm in who you are. Now, the third layer of this is the signaling game, where you want to demonstrate your intent and frame. In this game, you're the signaler, but the signal must be costly enough to be credible. Don't go in there saying, I'm a good man who values loyalty. I'm so honest, you can trust me, and I'm going to take care of you always. Instead, you're going to behave in a way that reflects that. Live with discipline, whether she's present or not. Lead in conversations. Don't wait for her to start to talk to you. And you need to take the actions and not try to sell her on your words. If you want her to depend on you and trust you, be the type of man that she can depend on and trust. And women's blind spot in all of this is they tend to fall in love with words and justify or excuse poor behavior. But women with strong values and convictions aren't so easily convinced. You have to commit to walking the walk. Otherwise, your words mean nothing at all. And a woman who is ready for traditional partnership will signal back, showing appreciation, support, trust, and softness. But a woman influenced by feminist suspicion will test, mock, and challenge your boundaries, and not from curiosity, but to compete with you. And the last layer of all of this is known as the prisoner's dilemma, and this is long-term versus short-term play. Because feminist culture has pushed these narratives, don't depend on men, explore yourself sexually, and that marriage is a trap. And this, initially, for many women, just has this innate trust gap, not because you did anything, but because her mind is so warped to believe that all of those statements are true. So if you are looking for a long-term partner, then you're gonna want your strategy to look something like this. Number one, and most important, avoid short-term games with women that you see as a long-term potential. Don't jump into bed right away, don't give up your work and your friends, and do not abandon your purpose to completely enmesh your life with this woman. Other things to pay attention to is when you give her something because you expect something else in return. AKA, don't just start providing so that she won't leave you. Because the reality is, you want a woman who chooses to stay because she wants you, not what you give her. So don't go all in at first. Keep some things to yourself until she has earned the trust to be in the position of your life where she has the privilege of being provided for. And no, that doesn't mean don't be a gentleman. It means lead with discernment. It's also incredibly important that you model integrity over manipulation. AKA, try not to escalate sexually quickly to lock her in. If you value your own word, honor it. Don't say you'll do something and then make excuses as to why you didn't. And please, 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 for all of the good-hearted men out there, please don't shift your character because of what another woman did to you. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is for men to stay composed. You may have encountered toxic women who've made you jaded, but the woman that you are wanting to build with is not going to tolerate any level of disrespect and or resentment for things she didn't do. So if this is what you want, you'll want to focus intentionally on having integrity with your values, your words, your actions, your convictions, and stay stable, steady, and strong. And lastly, you want to focus on incentivizing her trust by your consistency over time. This isn't about justifying reactive behavior because she said, did, or didn't do something. You are responsible for your behavior, just like she is responsible for her behavior. And I can tell you transparently, women will hold on to a man who is strong and stable. Not somebody that's easily jerked around because of her actions, because what that means is that she has the power in this relationship. And if you want her respect, then you need to have your own. Remember that in a repeated game, cooperation becomes the most important strategy. Meaning that if she is aligned with you, your values, your convictions, your purpose, and your vision for your life, she will mirror these things back to you. Step 4. Now that we've understood the game, we want to set the rules for your game. So the first thing that we have to do is get clear on what exactly we're looking for. And here's an example. So we're going to break this down into qualities and positive signals. So if you're looking for a woman who's nurturing, then you might see that she prioritizes her home and her family. If you're looking for a woman who embodies humility, which I would say is a bonus today, she's going to lead with curiosity, not speak from a position of superiority. Now, ideally in long-term partnerships, there's some collaboration, and this would reflect in seeing your problems as a team effort to overcome and not keeping score or this or tit-for-tat stuff. If you want a woman who is gracious, then you want to pay attention to her not using shame tactics, especially against men. And ideally, women with strong values and convictions are going to stay relatively grounded as much as our own psychology will allow. And this would look like her being less influenced by trends and more by timeless values. And now that we've gotten clear on the rules of the game, we have to optimize for environment. Trying to find a traditional woman on Tinder is like trying to find a monk at a rave. You will crush your self-esteem. Looking for a woman on apps that only drive connection based on surface level metrics. And a woman you can actually build with doesn't only care about your height, how much money you make, or if your eyes are fucking blue. They care about your character. So where do you look to find these kinds of women? Again, initially, I would encourage you to think about, where would you want your future wife to go in her alone time? What types of hobbies would you want her to have? And if you are strong in Christian values, then faith-based communities is a great place to look. Outside of that, she may volunteer. Or if you're into health and fitness, she might be at yoga or doing hikes or even in the gym. But be careful to notice what the fuck they're wearing. Okay, that is a signal just like anything else. Now, a lot of people do suggest that looking for women on an international level is useful. So I'm not gonna deny that that's also an option. Lastly, if you do spend your time on the internet, like all of us do, make sure that you're looking in places that have more value-driven conversation dynamics and less on the aesthetically pleasing photoshopped photo, AKA not just double tapping and swiping. Stop doing that. Because one thing I love about game theory is that it reminds us that if you change the board, you change the game. And if you change the game, well, you change the outcome. So to leave you in this portion of the video with some takeaways. And this is going to require some strategic patience. Remember, you're not here to win quickly. You're here to vet, filter, build rapport, and allow alignment to naturally reveal itself. AKA, be you, be who you are. Period. Now, I have to highlight that feminism taught women to never settle. And my advice to modern men is to adopt the same exact mindset, the same exact standard. And I feel like I say this a lot, but maybe not enough, that women would stop acting this way if men stopped tolerating it. You want a partner, but you don't need one. Remember that. And if the cultural game is rigged against value-based partnerships, don't go raging against the machine. Outsmart it. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's go surgical with this. Remember that we're looking in a world that often rewards flashiness over substance, dopamine over depth, and where many women, but not all of them, have a lot of internalized beliefs and behaviors that make long-term dating and or commitment incredibly difficult unless you are aware enough to see through the haze. So the first thing I want to cover in this surgical portion of the video is micro red flags that you need to pay attention to. And these are subtle, very easy to miss signals, but they will suggest a misalignment with your values and what you're actually looking for. Now, I also want to say that these are not deal breakers in isolation, but if a few of them stack up, if it looks like a tomato, it's a fucking tomato, yeah? So number one would be a micro contempt in humor, such as, ugh, men are so useless. Men are so clueless sometimes. Any type of disrespect painting a picture of all men is something that you want to pay attention to. And this signals a very low level of respect for masculine polarity. And it's always justified as sarcasm and humor and witty banter, but it's disrespectful, period. And the pitfall for men here is that you might want to just laugh it off to feel like you're chill, or you don't want her to perceive you as being too sensitive. But over time, that contempt erodes admiration, which is the fuel of female desire and male confidence. Number two is a hyper-curated persona, aka over-obsession with fucking social media. If her Instagram is full of posed body shots showing a little bit more skin than you as a man would be comfortable with, stop looking at that type of shit and stop engaging with it, first of all. Or she does this under the guise of, oh, it's just empowerment. No, it's me justifying devaluing my body for external validation. That's what that is. And it signals that she has this drive and or addiction to external validation. And do you think that that goes away when she gets in a relationship? And she will likely disguise this as confidence or influence. And the pitfall for men on this is that the aesthetic pulls you in. I won't deny, some of those women are absolutely beautiful, but you mistake the attention that she garners for the quality of the woman that she is and or the depth that she has. And the hidden danger in this is that she's optimizing for followers and views and validation, not family, not commitment, not loyalty, not you. Number three would be reflexive blame language. If she says things like, all my exes were narcissists, which is overly fucking used. My boss was toxic. I attract low vibe people. Or, this conversation isn't expansive enough for me, as if. And this will signal a lack of self-awareness and accountability. If she's the type of person that will put herself on a pedestal, she's also the type of person that will believe that she deserves something without earning it. And this can be disguised as trauma-informed, boundary setting, highly self-aware, or just speaking my truth. And the pitfall for men is that they might have this savior complex. You might feel this protective energy and this urge to save her. And you may take this on, her fantasy, and project it as your perception of who she is. And unfortunately, when reality hits you, you might realize she wasn't that high and mighty and innocent. And once that hits you, the idealization fades and you become the next villain. The next one is inflated standards, aka no reciprocity here. If women say things like, my man needs to make 6 figures, be emotionally available, be 6 feet tall, and take initiative, while she also offers minimum warmth, little to zero modesty, no support or respect, and certainly not a shared vision, that is a recipe for disaster. And this signals entitlement or consumerist mindset when it comes to dating, which is not something sustainable or that's going to set you up for success. And the pitfall for men here is that if you are emotionally starved or you feel completely invisible, you might overcompensate in order to keep her or earn her. And the hidden danger behind this is that your entire relationship is a transaction. You're a resource for her, not a partner. Number 5, and this one probably bothers me the most, but it's weaponized therapy talk. Like every single woman now is a fucking clinical psychologist. When she makes claims that that's gaslighting, you're being emotionally unsafe when you're just calmly disagreeing. Or she claims that you're being abusive because you got angry. Now, I feel as though I don't need to explain where respect gets crossed when you're angry. I feel like that's pretty fucking common sense. You know the difference between abuse and being angry and or disagreeing. And the most important piece around all of that is, do you maintain respect? Period. But this signals that she's using therapy speech as control, and she will do that under the disguise of emotional intelligence. And the pitfall for men behind all of this is that you'll start to question your own behavior. And you might start to erode your own boundaries to be seen as the safe and good guy. One other thing I see very often with men like this, or with women like this, is that they take on responsibility and aim to repair when the fault is not on them and she gives and takes none. And so you start to own things and take responsibility for things that weren't even your fault. And this is all emotional manipulation under the disguise of growth. Number 6, and this one is where you have to pay attention to what they say and what they do. And I mean, pay attention. Don't justify because she's beautiful or she's cute or she's funny. Pay attention. And this is cognitive dissonance. She might say that she wants a strong man, but then pushes you to really lean into more of a feminine energy. Or she says she hates hookup culture, but she also has a super high body count and no regrets. All of this signals an incoherence in their worldview. And as a man, your pitfall here is assuming that your logic will fix her. But for you, this is only going to cause frustration and future resentment. And the hidden danger, inevitably, is that you will drain yourself trying to make contradictory values align. Or you'll convince yourself that once she gets past this one thing, she will be perfect. But the reality is you cannot love a future version of somebody else. You need to get clear on if you can love them as they are right now, because most people never change. And number 7, and this kind of relates to female posturing, but it's performative modesty. If she makes cookies once and says, I just want to take care of somebody, but then refuses responsibility, interdependence, or feedback, taking feedback, it's truly just masked self-centeredness. And you as a man might project femininity onto her because that's what you want her to be. But unfortunately, you find yourself investing in potential and not reality. So this is part 1 of this video, which is getting extraordinarily long. But stay tuned for part 2, because we're going to go even deeper into not only what to look for, but how to think. And if you like this video, then check out this one, because I think you'll like it too. And if not, then respectfully, fuck off.